Greetings, English 102 students. You have made it all the way to week 6. So just a little shy of 3 weeks left of the course, and I know you can do it, and I know you can finish strong. This week I'll be talking about getting started on your research essay, starting off the drama unit, and just making sure that you get a good head start on both those things. So the very first thing I would do, if I were you, regarding starting this drama unit, before you do any of the reading, before you listen to any of the lectures or the lesson outlines or do any of that textbook reading, is that I would go read through the assignment instructions for the drama essay and familiarize yourself with the prompts that are listed there, the 4 possible things that you could write your research essay on, because you are going to have to pick one of those, and you are going to have to answer those proposed research questions, one of those that you select. So if you start out by getting a really good idea of that as to what the expectations are before you even start any of the reading or the lessons, then you will have a good idea maybe as you go through of what you might want to write your paper on as you go through the reading. So the 3 plays, I think it's Oedipus Rex, Othello, and Everyman are the 3 plays involved in the 4 writing prompts that you could choose from. So what I recommend you do is read all 3 of those plays, even though Everyman's not scheduled for reading until the final week. I would read all 3 plays because they're going to be on Pretest 3 anyway. They're going to be on Test 3. So regardless of what you choose for your prompt to write your paper on, you're going to need to be familiar with all 3 of those plays. And reading them all towards the beginning will help you, number 1, pick a topic, but also number 2, will help you be able to jot down notes for your prompt as you're reading through those plays. And sort of looking at the ideas presented in the prompts that you can choose from. So make sure that you read all 3 plays this week, and then also acquaint yourself between this week and next week with the chapters about the different ideas presented in the plays in your textbook. So for instance, I think 3 of the 4 prompts involve Aristotle's ideas about tragedy and about a tragic hero. So make sure that you're reading all of the different little casebook studies and chapters, textbook editors and articles from other people that are in your textbook about Aristotle's ideas and criteria for tragedy and for a tragic hero. Make sure you're real familiar with those because they're going to be on the test, and if you choose a prompt that involves them, which chances are, unless you choose Everyman, you will, you're going to need to be really familiar with all of those ideas. And you may even need to look up other sources that talk about Aristotle's ideas on tragedy and tragic heroes. So make sure you read through that. And think about the different prompts in regards to what they're particularly asking you. So for instance, the Everyman prompt asks you to think about and discuss what the unknown author's perception and treatment of death is in the play. So that means that if you choose that topic, you will need to write a thesis statement that addresses the research questions inherent in that prompt. So in other words, based on the idea of death and the character of death in Everyman, what would you say the person who wrote the play's views are about death? So your thesis should answer that question. It shouldn't ask that question. It shouldn't state this paper is about the author's views of death in Everyman. Okay, it should actually state the author, based on the treatment of death in Everyman, the unknown author's perception or beliefs about death are X, Y, and Z. You know, it could be that you think the author believes that death is a servant of God that can't be avoided, but we can always prepare for death. So maybe that's the end of your thesis statement. So that's the point you want to make in answer to the prompt, that based on the character of death and how that's treated in the play, based on the idea of death in the play, the author believes that death is God's messenger and that death can't be avoided, but it can be prepared for. Okay, so that would be a good thesis statement. Now, of course, you can't use that thesis statement word for word, but you get the idea. Come up with your own ideas about how death might be portrayed in that play. And the same thing goes for the other prompts. The one about whether or not Oedipus is a tragic hero according to Aristotle. The one about whether Othello is a tragic hero according to Aristotle. Your thesis statement should specifically address that particular idea that's stated in the prompt. It should state Aristotle is or is not, Oedipus is or is not a good tragic hero according to Aristotle. Othello is not or is a good tragic hero according to Aristotle's criteria. So your thesis statement should be a bold statement that answers the prompt, one of those prompts that are given. Now, before I get on to what your outline should include, I do want to mention too, please remember in both your writing of the paper and just as you're reading through these plays, that plays are meant to be performed. They're meant to be acted out. So I highly recommend that either you might want to read the plays out loud with a friend, or parts of the plays, or just a scene here or there, or just sort of recite it out loud to yourself if you can get into a place with some privacy. Or you live in the computer age, so you have the advantage of just being able to go on YouTube and type in, Othello the Moor of Venice performance or whatever, and bring up some sort of performance that will allow you to hear the words spoken aloud. Hopefully some kind of professional performance that will speak them aloud correctly, especially Shakespeare needs to be spoken correctly. But, or type in, Oedipus Rex and performance and see what that brings up. And hopefully you can hear at least some parts of the plays performed in some way, so they can give you a better idea of how the characters interact and how these different plays have been staged over the centuries, or over the decades. So consider doing that. Now back to your thesis statement and outline. As I've said, make sure that your thesis statement addresses the prompt, and don't look at any sources until you've written out your thesis statement and your entire outline. And this recommendation is to help you avoid any type of plagiarism, any type of even accidental including ideas that aren't your own in your paper. So in order to avoid any kind of plagiarism and to make sure everything you put in is your own work until you include sources, all you need to do is avoid looking at your sources until you write the major portion of your outline. So let's say you're doing the everyman prompt and your thesis statement is the one that I've already given an example of. So you think that the author's perception of death is that he's a servant of God and can't be avoided. So your main points then on your outline would be your supporting points that make that thesis statement clear. So perhaps your first supporting point would be the author views death in the play as a servant of God. So then underneath that, you would point out the different lines in the play where maybe God, summons death and says, go approach every man, and then death obeys God, right? And then he goes to every man. So all of those lines in the play would be proof that every man is a servant of God. So you would support that. I mean, not every man, that death is a servant of God. So you would support that point with quotes from the play. So every point in your outline would be a point that supported, either death as a servant of God, or death as it, can't be avoided, or death that you can prepare for his coming and how you prepare for death's coming. So each of those would be something that you would then support with quotes from the play, specific lines that actually prove that point. And then after you've got all of your main points in place and all of your supporting play quotes in place in your outline, that's when you bring in and you go look up and you find other sources that make statements that support your views and things that you've already put in for your paper. And that way, all you're doing is bringing in outside sources to support your point of view and to lend credibility to your point of view. Instead of reading a whole bunch of sources first and then trying to write your outline, and already you're bringing in all kinds of points of view of other people that you really should be giving credit to those other people. So if you do your outline first, you can avoid having all those extra ideas in your head that you've pulled from other people. Same thing goes for if you were doing one of the other ones about a tragic hero. The points on your outline would become Aristotle's criteria. You know, Aristotle's first criteria for a tragic hero is that he be a noble man, noble of both character and of status. You know, so some sort of royalty or some sort of high status in society, but also high stature as in high character. So that could be your first point, that, you know, yes, Othello, or yes, Oedipus is a man of nobility, both in character and social status. And then your supporting points from the play, or supporting quotes from the play, would make those be your supporting points on your outline. And then you would bring in outside sources that would agree with you. So the same thing goes for any of those particular prompts that you decide to write on. So make sure that you're doing that first and then searching for sources. And note, when I gave those examples, that the points on the outline were not plot summary. Please remember that you need to avoid plot summary, and I've mentioned this with every paper that we've done, and it especially holds true for this. And the way you can check and make sure that you're not doing plot summary is to go through your paper and look at the first sentence of every paragraph. Okay, so the first sentence of every paragraph should be some sort of main point supporting your thesis. You know, some sort of point about Aristotle's criteria and does this match up, or some sort of point about the role of death and the author's view of death. Okay, it shouldn't. You shouldn't have a paragraph that begins, and then every man went and visited his friends to see if they would go with him. Okay, that's a plot type of statement beginning a paragraph. You don't want that. You want a main point that you're making about the play that starts out every paragraph. So no paragraph should start out, you know, Oedipus then went and visited the Sphinx, you know, or then this happened to Oedipus, or then Oedipus found out this. Well, those are all plot points, so that shouldn't be starting off a paragraph. Okay, your argument should be about Aristotle's criteria and whether or not Oedipus or Othello actually fits that particular criteria. So that's how you do a check and make sure you're avoiding plot summary. Okay, so make sure that you've got your supporting play quotes and then your supporting outside sources. Now, speaking about sources, let's talk about that. And I know I've mentioned this already in the posted announcement, but you really need to make sure that your sources are of the right type. So please avoid any type of internet source. I hope you guys understand that anyone can post anything on the internet at any time, and it doesn't mean they have the credentials to talk about what they're talking about. So when you're doing academic work, you should be doing academic research and using sources that are written by those who are experts in that academic field. So avoid pretty much any internet source, period. Any websites, unless you use Google Scholar, which normally most of the time brings up published sources that have been peer-reviewed. So unless you use Google Scholar to do your searching, don't Google anything. Don't use any just regular search engine. Don't use a website, no .edu, no .gov, no blog postings, no study guide sites that, you know, like Spark Notes or anything that summarizes plot and whatever. And definitely no essay sites, because I promise you will fail for plagiarism, or you will lose a ton of points and get an F on the paper if you do that. So please read through my posted announcement for this week, for week 6, on how to properly search for credible sources published by literary critics, peer-reviewed, Okay, so there's a process involved in published academic journals where a lot of other people in your same field with PhDs and doctoral degrees review your submitted work, have you make changes, and then it gets published. Okay, so that's the kind of works that you should be looking at, and make sure that you're looking up sources that are actually about the work that you've selected. I've gotten papers from students that don't have a single literary critic in their sources. They have all psychological people talking about behavioral things. Okay, you might, be allowed to use one of those, but make sure that you have sources about the play that you've chosen, written by literary critics and expressing their literary opinions about the play. So make sure that you include those. And another thing that students like to do is just include all sources from the textbook. Okay, you may not do that. You may use one other source from the textbook, so one other article besides the play. So the play itself doesn't count as one of the 5 scholarly sources. So you can use the play, but that doesn't count, and then you can use one of the articles written about Aristotle or something like that in your textbook as a source. But the other 4 sources need to come from scholarly peer-reviewed journals or published books on the topic, so that you're actually doing research outside of your textbook. So the whole point of this assignment is to show that you can do scholarly academic research on a particular given topic and incorporate it and integrate it smoothly into your paper in support of your points. So make sure that you are doing that. If you have really searched a lot and you're having problems finding sources, and I know every man has a particular problem with this, email me and let me know, and I'll see if I can't help you find some good sources. But make sure that you also remember that there's Liberty librarians that are available to help you search for any types of sources you need. And this is a standard English 102 assignment, so librarians have helped students find many sources on these particular plays. So they're all set and ready to help you. So go to the Liberty online library page, and it will tell you how you might personally contact a librarian who will work with you and help you to find these sources too. So thesis statement, outline, no plagiarism, no summary, unless it's in support of a criteria or a main point that you're making, and make sure that you are looking at scholarly sources. Finally, pretest 3 is due at the end of this week, so it's due Monday, this coming Monday, midnight Eastern time. And again, you can take it as many times as you want. It's on all of the plays and all of the lessons, so to help prepare you for test 3. Your thesis and outline are due to me sometime between now, the beginning of week 6, and the beginning of week 8. So the very last day that you can submit it is Monday of week 8 by midnight in order to get my feedback. And in order to get credit for doing the thesis and outline assignment. But the earlier you submit it, the earlier that lets you begin work on your essay. So really work hard to get that into me, and I will try to get that feedback back to you as soon as possible. All right, so I hope you will enjoy reading these plays, as strange and crazy as they are at some points. But again, they address specific aspects of human nature and of society that we see maybe sometimes reflected in us and our behavior or in those around us. Definitely presents scriptural truths about sin nature. And so I hope you will pull from those, and they will really impact you as far as your understanding of people and how you might approach others perhaps with the gospel. So keep in mind a biblical worldview as you read and understand these characters and all the trials and tribulations they're going through, and maybe even as you think about and endure the trials and tribulations that you're going through, that you may be going through. And know that I will be praying for you as you undertake this last big task of completing this research essay and completing this class. You're nearly there, and you're going to make it. please email me if you have any questions for me. I will be happy to answer as always. And I will be grading your poetry essays all this week and throughout this weekend. And so hopefully you'll get some good feedback from me on those as well. I will be praying for you as you work your way through these plays. So have a good week, a productive week, and I will see you here again next week.